Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. It's the weekend before the holiday, before Christmas. So I hope everyone is getting ready for the holidays. Um, before I before I forget. People say I always forget to ask people to subscribe to my channel. So I'm going to say this as as the first thing. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Okay. All right. So let's talk about Beijing's sudden U-turn on its economic policies, right, amid a major COVID outbreak. So Xi Jinping recently hosted the CCP leadership's economic policy meeting for 2023, and he has hit the undo button to reverse his own economic direction for China that he set at the Party Congress less than 2 months ago. So we'll talk about Beijing's 180-degree turn on the economy and whether there is an undo button for Xi Jinping to hit. Um, our analogy is after 3 years of lockdowns and mass tests, Beijing's sudden U-turn on its COVID policy has brought chaos, panic, and suffering, right? So the term extremist now has different definitions. I call the Chinese communists extremists because they like to go from one extreme to another. The regime went from wanting to zeroing out positive COVID cases for 3 years to now wanting to zeroing out people who are negative with COVID. Yes, I'm not kidding. The regime wants to eliminate people who test negative so they can achieve herd immunity quickly. On December 16th, a number of screenshots showing discussions online about Wuxi, it's a city in Jiangsu province, the Wuxi municipal government being criticized by higher authorities for being too slow in spreading COVID. And the screenshots show that, oh, by the way, I don't have any visual aids today. I will share the links that will show you these references when I finish talking. So you will have that. So the screenshots show that the Wuxi municipal government held a meeting to convey the criticism from the Jiangsu provincial government for being too slow in getting most people getting COVID once by March next year. And the reason is, according to the posts, the higher the authorities believe that the economy would be able to operate normally if herd immunity was achieved by March. And so the Wuxi Municipal Education Board now allow only students who test positive 2 days in a row or for 2 consecutive days uh, to stay at home. Everyone else, whether you test negative or if you test positive for the day, just only for the day, you still need to go to school. I think this is the solution the local government came up with to deal with the criticism that they don't have enough positive cases. I heard a few days ago from a Chinese who said that all the positive people, COVID positive people, are running around outside, in shops and in the streets. And then the negative people are staying at home. I'm talking about China. So that's why the negative people don't want to go out. I think the government is now forcing the negative people to go outside so it spread quickly, right? If you look at the school board's decision, you can only stay at home if you test positive for 2 days in a row. Everyone else has to go to school or go to work. So in a matter of weeks, CCP's policy has gone from one extreme, which is to zero out positive cases, to the other extreme. And it's not a small matter. It's a matter that involves people's health and lives. So Chinese are having a hard time digesting it mentally and also dealing with it physically. So the same is happening in its economy. Just like its COVID policies, China's economic direction also took a 180-degree turn. After Xi Jinping reiterated the common prosperity theme and also the Chinese-style modernization and the self-reliance theme at the Party Congress, and painted the bright future of a planned economy, or what he calls people's economy, suddenly he wanted to hit the undo button. Bloomberg reported that Beijing was canceling the annual economic policy meeting due to COVID, but then it corrected itself by saying that the meeting would proceed according to plan. So Xi Jinping and his Politburo members risked their chances of getting COVID and conducted the economic policy meeting from December 15th to the 16th. It just shows you how important the economy is to them. The failing Chinese economy is now threatening their power, is threatening the regime. But the meeting took a U-turn from the Party Congress, and it did not mention common prosperity. Instead, the press statements coming out of the meeting included verbiage that we haven't heard from Xi Jinping for a while. Things like comprehensively deepening reforms and opening up, adhering to the direction of socialist market economy reforms, and insists on promoting a high level, a comprehensive level of opening up to the outside world. So this sudden change indicates that the worsening economy has reached a tipping point, and the leadership is forced to do something because it fears losing power. The meeting acknowledged that China's economy is facing the triple pressure of 1, demand contraction, 2, supply shock or supply chain shock, and 3, weakening expectations domestically. Right? These 3 are the domestic pressures, and then also a volatile external geopolitical environment. So this, the CCP acknowledged that. And 3 people spoke at the meeting. Xi Jinping summarized the 2022 year and analyzed the current situation and planned the economy for next year. Li Keqiang, who is on his way out, right? He will retire from the premiership next spring. Also spoke and made plans for the next year's economic outlook. Economic work. And then the premier to be, which is Li Qiang, gave a concluding speech. And people said, if you look at the coverage, Li Keqiang did not attend the meeting with Xi Jinping from the same room, because the podium, Xi Jinping sat at the podium with the other 6 members of his Politburo, whereas Li Keqiang sat at a table with 4 other people. It might have been either they attended the meeting from different places, or it could be that Li Keqiang, I think the TV station just edited in some earlier footage from Li Keqiang, who might have hosted a similar type of meeting within the state council. And they just, maybe Li Keqiang didn't even want to go to this meeting, right? Because he's retiring, and they just edit in. They have to show unity, so they edit in footage from one of his previous meeting. But anyways, that was kind of the summary. But to give you the highlight of the meeting, there are 4 highlights. Why I say he hit the undo buttons, right? Why he's reversing the direction he set at the Party Congress. So the first thing is he re-emphasized the importance of private companies. We know I've done a couple of videos that talked about how he was planning, how he is prioritizing the state-owned enterprises, right? The SOEs are his top priorities. He's consolidating, he's doing more mergers and acquisitions among these SOEs, so they are becoming ever more dominating and large in size. And but now he's saying, I'm just reading you what the meeting said. I'm reading you the quote. It says, implement legal and administrative mechanisms to allow equal treatment of state-owned enterprises and private companies. Encourage the growth of private companies and private economy in terms of policy and public opinion. protect the property rights of private companies and the rights of entrepreneurs in accordance with law. So this is very interesting. He's saying that, well, we need to give the state SOEs and the private companies the equal treatment. We should treat them the same. And then we need to encourage the growth, the private economy in terms of policy and public opinions. It emphasizes public opinions. It means that, well, we need to kind of control the propaganda to kind of let people see, private business, private owning a private company as a positive things, because the propaganda, the CCP propaganda has done so much to steer people to the left. So people are now they fear private companies. So now it wants to, move everything back. So I thought that's very interesting, right? But here's the thing. It is a drastic change, but is he saying this because he needs the money from the private businesses? Or does he actually believe that private businesses and a free market is imperative to a thriving economy? I don't know how many people who actually trust him actually believe that I don't know how many people actually trust that he actually believes in the free economy and private businesses, right? So I don't know how people will respond to that. Plus, this policy came in a little too late because after 3 years of lockdowns, many private business owners don't have the resources or the confidence to continue their business in China. Many want to run. So I don't know, number one, how many people would really trust that is the policy that he actually believes in, and two, how many people have the means or the abilities to actually start their business all over again. So the second highlight is sounds like he wants to save the real estate market. So under the agenda item called effective prevention and resolution of major economic and financial risks, the meeting discussed the direction for a smooth growth of the real estate sector. And basically it set three priorities. Number one is do a solid job to ensure the delivery of home buildings. That's just it's not a very good translation. What it's saying is you need to do a good job to make sure that those, unfinished constructions, those rear rotting buildings that people live in that's not finished, that people are paying mortgage for, the developers, you need to finish that. And the second priority is meet the reasonable financing needs of the industry and promote industry restructuring and mergers and acquisitions to effectively prevent and dissolve risks of large developers and debt situations. So it's now saying that, the financing vehicles are still allowed, and we encourage mergers and acquisitions, and it's primarily done to prevent the large developers, right, from going into bankruptcies. So that's the second priority. And the third is resolutely combat illegal and criminal acts in accordance with the law. I think they know there's just so much corruption in the real estate sector. Without stopping that, any money the government spends probably will have minimal impact. So some China analysts believe that it sounds like Beijing will provide some sort of funding for developers to finish the rear rotting buildings, right? To finish the unfinished constructions, so that people can move in, so people can get their homes that they're paying mortgage for. And these funds will be provided to the banks, and the banks supposedly should make sure that the money is spent on finishing the constructions. But here is the tricky situations. The banks are on the side of the developers because the developers owe them so much money, right? So if the developers don't pay the banks back for their debts, the banks will fall. So the banks are only interested in having the developers pay them back and not interested in seeing the developers spending the money on constructions. And that's exactly how the problem started. That's why these constructions cannot be finished, because they have too much debt. The banks who like holds these monies, allow the developers to use the money to pay for their to pay back for their loans or debts. So that was the problem. So no matter how the central government announce rules and stipulations and using the regulatory agencies to manage it, it's difficult, because the banks and the developers are the same entity, and they're going to help each other. They're not going to help the homeowners. So people say the real estate industry is like a stage 4 cancer, and if CCP doesn't want to undergo a major surgery to cut the tumor, but instead, letting it grow on its own or even feed to it, the cancerous cells will eventually eat away all the healthy tissues. And so that's what's happening. The third highlight is the central government, or Beijing, is now encouraging it says, encourage the diversification of education services, support and regulate the development of private education, regulate after-school programs and training, and steadily promote the reform of private education management, and carry out joint ventures to run schools with foreign educational institutions. So this is so ironic. After tearing down training and after schools, stopping English teaching programs and English exams, and discontinuing the use of foreign textbooks and turning away foreign teachers in China for more than a year. And all of a sudden, Xi Jinping hit the undo button and say, we welcome foreign education institutes to come to China to set up joint ventures with our schools and teach here. And I saw somebody said that all those companies that all those teachers that lost jobs because of this policy shift more than a year ago are probably crying now, because they just couldn't believe their eyes. After going through so much, after losing so much money, after giving away their teaching facilities, their classroom teaching, all the equipment and the furnitures, they got rid of all of them. And now the central government saying, well, we welcome you back. So this is so ironic. Again, will people respond to that? I think, I really doubt it. I really doubt how many foreign teachers are ready to return to China to teach now, right? So again, he may hit the button, but will the button do anything? Okay, so the fourth highlight is, it says increase investments and focus on exports. And this is an area that Beijing has actually actively pursuing. Chinese media reported that several major export provinces, such as Guangdong, Sichuan, and Zhejiang, have sent a large number of delegations to attend trade shows and visit foreign clients to seize orders to stabilize exports. And Chinese media have used headlines such as, I'm just translating for you, 1,000 delegations representing 10,000 companies go outside the borders to grab manufacturing orders. It sounds very aggressive. I think I toned it down when I translated into English for you. But the Chinese is a lot more aggressive and threatening than what I just said in English. So, for example, on December 4th, a delegation composed of officials from the Department of Commerce of Zhejiang province and also representatives of companies in that province flew to Germany and France to secure orders. And on December 5th, a chartered plane organized by the Department of Commerce of Sichuan province flew to Europe to expand their market in Europe. December 9th, the Suzhou, it's a city in Jiangsu, the Suzhou Municipal Bureau of Commerce also chartered a flight to France and Germany with two goals. One is to help export companies obtain orders, and two, look for investment opportunities. And also in late November, Suzhou City of Bureau, the same municipal bureau of commerce, has sent a team to Japan to attract investments. And earlier in October, Wuxi City, another city in Jiangsu province, has sent a team of export and investment people also through a chartered plane to Japan. And there are also reports that Chinese companies have also gone to Middle East, to UAE. So, I mean, this is just a partial list of the companies. I mean, the municipal governments that have, send large delegations. I mean, the fact that they chartered a whole plane to, that means that there are hundreds of people on the in the delegation, right? So there's a professor by the name of Yang Yiqing, who is the executive vice president of Zhejiang Business Research Institute, a major think tank in that province. He summarized the characteristics of the initiatives in 3 words. The first word in Chinese is 抢东西的抢. It means grab something fast, right? It's almost like a fight. You fight with someone. You want to grab something from your competitors, right? So it means grab the orders. Here, I mean, it means that they're grabbing the orders, the manufacturing orders fast. So that's the first characteristic, right? And the 2 is economy of scale, 团结的团. It means that by creating this group, or by consolidating all the private companies in the province or in the city, by creating a group, then they feel like they have a stronger bargaining power to negotiate with the foreign clients, that they can achieve an economy of scale. So that's what they feel. And if you think about it, it's only in a totalitarian society can a government mobilize, do this kind of a effort to organize private industries, right? You basically kind of line up all the major exporters in a province, and then charter an airplane for them, and then help them go support them with all the logistics to help them get orders. So, and it's happening, across China. So that's the second feature or characteristic, which is the economy of scale. And the third, he said, according to this professor, is efficiency. And it says that by charting an airplane, when you have everyone, go together, the private sector, the government, when the private businessmen go with the government, this professor felt like there's efficiency achieved. I don't think there's any efficiency in terms of business. I think there is an efficiency from the perspective of the CCP. I think the government can keep an eye on these private business owners to make sure that they don't disappear or they don't just run, because it's so difficult for wealthy people to leave China, right? I mean, some people can't get their passports back. So I think this efficiency is really done to make sure that the government officials can keep an eye on these private business owners so that they don't just quit and stay, in these foreign countries and not come back. I think that's the efficiency that they're talking about. So the big brother will always be watching. So now the question is, so I summarized the 4 highlights, right? So will it work? The question is, will it work? Within 2 months of having finishing the Party Congress, all of a sudden Xi Jinping is reversing the economic direction. Well, I think in the short run, the Chinese may get some orders, but in the long run, it won't change the trend that companies and supply chains are moving out of China. Even internally, I think there are several reasons why this sudden change of direction will be counterproductive. So I'm not focusing on the external factors, right? How the outside world is competing with China, or more and more countries see the CCP as a threat. I'm not addressing the geopolitical factor. I'm only talking about China's internal factors within China, why such a policy will be met with resistance. First of all, the first reason is the sudden change of policy will confuse the local officials and further paralyze the local government system because they are already very confused and they don't know what to do. So a Shanghai-based political scientist by the name of Jiang Feng, it could be a pen name, not a real name. He wrote on VOA, Voice of America, on the 15th, in an article saying that the horrific and absurd chaos that continues to unfold in China right now indicates a government system that has been paralyzed for the past 3 years. He said that during the past 3 years, the entire bureaucratic system of the regime prioritized zero COVID over other matters, and party officials formed a rigid mentality, and they mechanically carried out the orders from their superiors. You can argue that these bureaucrats are the most loyal to the party, but at the same time, they're the ones that are the least effective because they're laying flat. They are not doing anything. All they do is waiting for the highest instructions to direct their political careers. And in order to protect themselves, to avoid any political mistakes, they do not dare to do anything. They do not take any risk in the face of problems, particularly in the face of problems. So they let problems grow into crisis, and they're still waiting for orders. I mean, so that's what has happened in the past few years. And this mentality and this situation in China right now at the local level is strikingly similar to the mentality of Soviet officials before the collapse of the Soviet Union. And I think this is the most dreadful thing to the regime because it's losing control over its own officials, over its own apparatus at the local level. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is the emotional and psychological burden on the 1.3 billion Chinese people for an excessively long time will seriously destroy consumer confidence and market enthusiasm. Right now, Chinese people are fighting with COVID in fear and despair because they know they will sooner or later get it. Right? China's own experts have come out and said that between 80 to 90% of the Chinese will get COVID. So from the perspective of the regime, the sooner everyone get COVID, the better it is for the regime to reopen for the economic recovery. But the people have been subject to government's propaganda for 3 years, and they've been brainwashed on how bad the virus is. So suddenly they're told everyone will get COVID now. And then they're witnessing the meltdown of the medical system in front of their eyes. Imagine the emotional distress and the physical suffering and also the trauma. But these are of no concerns to the regime, but they are deadly to a thriving economy, right? To the recovery of the Chinese economy. I think it would take the Chinese a long time to recover from this. In my last live stream, I mentioned Radio Free Asia's report on the crisis that Beijing has right now in dealing with the remains of the deceased. In the past couple of days, I've seen other mainstream media like UK's Financial Times, and I think there's also maybe it's the Wall Street Journal or maybe the Bloomberg. Also, some Taiwanese media have also interviewed people working at funeral homes in Beijing and confirmed that that bodies are piled up, waiting to be cremated, and the waiting time for cremation at Beijing's largest cremation facility, the Babaoshan Cemetery, is now 8 days. Right? When I gave you the update 2 days ago, it was 5 to 7 days. Now it's 8 days. And this is not just Beijing. The same situation occurred in other cities as well, such as Shijiazhuang, Shenyang, and Baoding. So I think this panic and this emotional burden, psychological burden is not something that that can be undone easily. And the third reason is the uncertainty of the pandemic. Many people are optimistic that we'll see the end of the pandemic in 2023. Isn't the Secretary General of the WHO organization um, have hasn't he said something like he's preparing to declare a global victory against COVID sometime next year? I doubt the virus that came from Wuhan 3 years ago is ready to retire from the world stage soon. I think the Secretary General might have underestimated the virus, just like he underestimated it at the beginning of the outbreak 3 years ago. From what I read and heard, the symptoms that the Chinese are suffering in the current outbreak are quite different from the COVID symptoms that we've seen elsewhere. Many have reported orthopedic symptoms. I know someone who has COVID. He has also flashed his back, lower back, and he told me it's a very common. It's very common among COVID, people who have COVID in China. I thought that's kind of weird. How could you throw your, back when you have COVID? But then I saw that people have complained about bone aches, joint pains, muscle aches. So it sounds like there are orthopedic symptoms related to COVID. John Kirby, the White House national security spokesperson, said on the 14th that the United States was prepared or is prepared to help China in any way that they might find acceptable, but China has not requested help at this time. I don't think China will accept help from the United States or any outside country, not because it doesn't need help, but because if it accepted assistance from the US, Chinese people will see that the CCP's self-proclaimed institutional advantage and its governing ability are big lies. I think it was 2 days ago, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, is that Wang Wenbin, has said that China is confident in its ability to fight the pandemic because of its institutional advantage. It believes its political institution has advantage over other countries in battling COVID. So I don't think it will accept help from any outside countries. Otherwise, because if it did, it will lose face, because saving its political credibility is more important than saving people's lives. And that's the same reason why China refused international assistance during the Great Famine of the 1960 and also the Great Tangshan earthquake in 1976. But a document issued by Shandong Provincial Pandemic Control Center requested 500 medical professionals in the province to go to Beijing to help the capital city. And they must be experienced medical professionals under the age of 45. So that means that they're not sending retired medical professionals or medical school students who they are recruiting, right, to help. So they're not sending those extra helps to Beijing, but they're sending the backbone of their medical professionals. They're sending the medical professionals who are the backbone of their hospitals to Beijing. So it sounds like CCP is quietly gathering medical resources to go to Beijing, but it doesn't. The statement at the end of the statement, it says this effort should not be reported by media, and approval is required for any publicity. So CCP does not want people to know that they're quietly gathering medical help from other regions to go to Beijing. Why? Well, it's because all the CCP officials are in Beijing. They need doctors and nurses, right? More than the others. But all the medical professionals are short and everywhere in other parts of the country. Beijing probably has the most established medical systems in the country, Beijing and Shanghai. So if anything, Beijing has more doctors and nurses than other cities and provinces. So, but it's drawing these people from other regions, and it does not want Chinese people to know. So I don't. But do you think people wouldn't know? Of course, people will find out, right? People will find out. So I think the fourth factor is that I really question Xi Jinping's reversal of policy will work, because I don't think China's economy will be on track in 2023 because of the political instability, because of the societal instability. I think social unrest will continue to be an issue in 2023. So for those reasons, I don't think Xi Jinping has an undo button to hit, even though he might have hit something, but that button probably wouldn't do anything. So with that, I end my presentation. I think it's so much easier when I don't have visual aids, so I could just keep talking. It's more difficult when I try to go back and forth between my slides and videos and talking. So hopefully that's helpful to you. All right, let's see. What questions do I have? Let's see. From JD, thank you. Thank you, JD. Let's see. Questions. Quickly go through the questions. Wow, I do have a lot of comments from Venkat. Jun family holds so much private enterprise. With this U-turn, is the family off the hook with Xi? China exports. You're saying Jian family, Jian Zemin's family. Well, I think it's different. I think Xi Jinping will continue to strike down the business of his political enemies, precisely because they have so much money. He needs money. I think by private business, he's really talking about the privately owned business by people who are not necessarily linked to the government. Yeah. So, or if they're connected to the local government, right? So if you look at the companies that the local, provincial, or municipal government chartered airplanes for, these are the companies that are in fashion business. They make clothing for foreign brands. They make small home electronics. They make food ingredients. So these are truly the local private businesses that does contribute significantly to China's exports. China's exports are mostly supported by these private business. And these are not necessarily those gigantic companies like, Alibaba or, I think Jan's, like JD, all these giant Chinese conglomerates, these are all backed by these princelings, right? So, but I'm talking about, I think he's referring to those small to mid-sized private companies. And okay, China exports has so much incentives. Will incentives come back? Well, we have to, he said his policy wants to treat the private business and then the state SOEs the same. Well, let's see if there are any policies that back that up. But right now, it's very difficult. They have always been treated differently, right? The SOEs have better access to financing platforms, and the private business don't. So we'll see what he does in terms of incentives to the private businesses. From William Warren, Chinese people rest easy. CCP is safe from COVID. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you for the donation. All right, from Rob Hulk, or can Ming Chi Guo assess the quality of leaks about the effect of COVID on Apple. Assess the quality of leaks about the effect of COVID on Apple. What do you mean by quality of leaks? I remember you asked me this question once. I'm sorry for not getting back to you. I need to write this down. Maybe you could elaborate your question a little better. I'll make sure I give you an answer next time, because I think this is the second time I've seen this question. All right. Thank you, David Morgan. Yo Ming, Sinovac making any progress in their I think they are. I think that what I heard is what the Chinese government want Pfizer and then the German pharma to release the technology to China, and they refused. So I think the last thing that I've heard is they have signed an agreement to import vaccines and no, I think right now they're importing the COVID-19 treatment, the Paxlovid, the drug in China. They might have also signed a deal to import the vaccines, but they are not. I think the Chinese government got itself into trouble because it asked the Western farmers to release give them the technology, which they were turned down, and then it did, because it threatened, no, if you don't give me the technology, I'm not going to buy your product. And now with the outbreak, it's forced to buy their vaccines. So that's yeah, they just imported Paxlovid. I don't know how you say this drug name. All right. Let's see. And somebody say, Teacher Lee is not your teacher, is a strong who bravely, yeah. There's I think he's an artist. He lives in Europe, and Chinese netizens have, sent him post information videos that they collect from China, and so he's publishing them on Twitter, and then he's very informative, but he's also under threat by certain people. But I think he's admirable for doing what he does. From Ferrari Guy, Lei has some 50 cents stalker regulars in the chat. Dumpf is here, is one of them. Well, he is. I think he's my most loyal 50 cent troll. So he's here, and if he's logging in from China, I think this is his chance to. I'm glad that he follows my channel. This is his only chance to get real information about what's happening around him. So he gets the most benefit out of this than all of us, because we have other source of information. This is his only chance. So I hope I hope he cherishes these opportunities. There's a reason I want to make a video about that. There's a story that just broke yesterday about a Chinese Wu Mao. He studied in the West and he returned to China, and he is a social media influencer. And he figured out that if he adopted this pro-CCP narrative, his channel will grow so much bigger in China, and it's a good business for him. So people are doing this purely for money. And he figured out the algorithm will be so much favorable to him, and he will get so much money if he just does, if he does the narratives that the government wants him to do. And he talked about that. He talked about how he made all the money he made by doing that. And he said when he first began, he was trying to be balanced. He also gave some criticisms of the Chinese government. He tried to do it the balanced way, but then he got scolded internally from the platform from the people who run the platform. And then so he got rid of that. He just went completely one-sided, and he made a lot of money. So people are doing that purely for money. So my number one Wu Mao friend here could be doing this for money. Maybe if this is the only way he can make a living, then it's okay, then let him do this. All right. So thank you very much. I don't want to tie you guys up for too long, but someone from Europe, from UK, suggests that I do this some other times. I will try to do this lives once every month on Sunday mornings. And so that's afternoon for Europe. So hopefully that will help people. All right. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next week. Okay. Bye-bye.